Good now? Can you guys hear me? Please say yes. There we go. All right, sorry about that. I did double check all this the other day. I'm not sure why it Murphy's Law, I guess. Anyway, yes, TK, we did do a build a few years ago. That's 5 years ago already. Um, see how many people we have on here if we can start this drawing. There's about 10 people on. We already waited about 4 minutes. What do you guys say? We wait a couple more minutes before we spin the wheel? Or do we want to get started? Okay, I guess we'll get started. All right, so I think Jack won the one 5 years ago too. That's pretty amazing. Anyway, okay, is Jack on? Stop.
Then I would back up.
Yeah.
It was doing some crazy stuff.
Did it not go? Did the spin wheel not go on the screen?
No.
All right, so let me go back to that because it's still up there. He gets to pick what magnet package and what chassis he wants, unless he is not on the stream. And then I'll pick. And if I'm picking, I'm just going to pick middle of the road stuff. So the high torque magnets and the firm chassis, because it goes medium, firm, stiff for the Viper chassis. So in the essence of time, so we can get started, I'm just going to choose the firm, which is actually this chassis right here anyway. I'm going to move the other two out of the way. As we go through this, if you guys have any questions, just type them there. Kuiper will try to keep up with the questions. And if you want anything zoomed in on, he has access to this camera right here. All right, here you go.
Or firm is fine.
What is he just messaging you?
Yeah.
Okay. He's not on the, because I don't see him in the chat here. All right, so we're going to go with the firm. Ask him what magnets he wants. Low downforce, high torque, or high downforce. And while we're figuring that out, I'm going to get started. I already did the first side of the front axle here, which is right here. This is my new rim and my new front axle. It's a drill blank front axle 0465. I already installed the retainer on this side, and each side we bevel a little bit. I don't have that disc. I broke it. Otherwise, I'd show you what I do. But I beveled this end a little bit so that the retainer goes in. Okay. I'll put this on. And I'm just going to grab another rear axle. Hold on.
Like high downforce magnets.
High downforce, okay. So the way I like to do this is I always use some green Loctite. I take a toothpick and I'll dip it in here. Make sure I get a decent amount on there. As such, I'll take the retainer. You might want to zoom in on this because it's not easy for me to so that when I go to put the guide pin in, I just have a little bit more to hold and offer some resistance, especially if you're going to use the stiff chassis, or the stiff chassis from Viper or the super stiff from BSRT, which are pretty difficult to get the guide pin in. So when putting the guide pin on, I want to grab the guide pin all the way up by the flanges with the pliers so that there's no space in between the edge of the plier and the guide pin, because if there is, it'll bend easier right there, and you don't really want it to bend because then your guide pin's junk and it'll rub on the slot of the track. So we go right here, just put it in there, make sure everything's lined up. And push it down, check the guide pin, make sure it's not bent, which it is not. And that's that. I mean, I know everyone knows how to put a guide pin in, but just so they don't bend, that's how I like to do that. All right, so take that off to the side for right now. Show off my nice new Endbell tool that Corey Glover made for me. Nice and orange.
Remember that, folks.
Yeah, remember that. It'll be key later. There will be, if you guys want to stick around, thanks for the reminder. Stick around after the build video, because there will be 2 trivia questions. One trivia question to win a free entry into the CMPM race at this year's Nationals in Boston. And there'll be another trivia question to win this nice little prize pack right here filled with RPM's goodies. There's like $70 worth of stuff in there. All right, so moving on to the Endbell. This is a BSRT silver Endbell. I need to get that bushing out of there so we can put the ball bearing in there. So I just have a nice little screwdriver that I like to do that. It's just a flat head. Make sure that the arms are opened all the way with your Endbell tool. Sorry. As such. All right, just drop that on there. And I don't know if this tool has got a large enough opening, so let me grab my other one. It is. Sorry about that. The hammer hit the mouse. I'm back. This tool has a wider opening for my screwdriver to get down in there and knock the bushing out. That's all I was going after. So there's that. It's out. What's that?
So many good comments to make.
Yeah. Thanks. So where are we at with the comments? Nothing new? All right. So you can see the bushing is out. Sorry. Stream difficulties. Just bear with me a second. I got my bearings off to the side over here and my bearing / bushing install tool. Just gonna make sure that the arms are still open. Pop the bushing in. You might want a video.
There's no sound when you do this video, though. You know what I mean?
What's this? 3/32 center punch. Okay. So we got the bearing in. And now we'll go ahead and tweak this. We'll start with the Endbell ears. So I'm going to work over here so you guys can see this a little bit better. We'll do it like this. I like to grab the ear right here, about halfway down the ear with my pliers, nice and flat. And these pliers have a nice thin tip. Be good, Kuiper. Let me put it up here. The pliers have a nice thin tip to make this fold or bend on these Endbell ears. So again, we're going to grab it down there just like that. And we're going to, it's like two motions. And this is thanks to Chris Rondo. He showed me this years ago. We're going to push down and pull over. And basically what you're trying to do is get the ear to have a nice L shape so that it's sticking out. And I'll explain why we want that later on when we go ahead and put the hangers in. So that's what the one looks like. See, it's standing straight out. And this is what it looks like by default. It's just like at a 45-degree angle. So I'm going to go ahead and bend this one again. Or not again, but bend the other side. Again, grab it about halfway down. As such. And then push and then pull the top over. And trust me, you're going to break quite a few before you get the hang of it. I did. There's really no way to get around it. Until you get the hang of what you want to do there, they're just going to break. But once you get it, you're going to be like, that's pretty easy. And it is. So right now, this Endbell, straight from BSRT, is pretty close to what we want with the brushes. See if we can see it better on this side. They're overhanging a little bit. They got a nice angle in each arm. And what these angles are going to do, like this right here, the more this arm is angled, the more advance you're going to put into your motor, which means you'll have more top end but less torque. The other thing is, with the higher advancing that you give your motor, whether by turning the Endbell or bending the arm like this, or getting a motor that already has advanced timing built in, the more total advance you get, the higher your heat is going to be. So just keep that in mind. So basically these are pretty close to what we want. The tension feels pretty good. You're going to want more tension with CMPM versus a super stock Endbell. So I like to look at this and see how far, when you pull one brush away, how far down the other brush goes. I'm basically trying to see that the brush here comes past the center hole in the bushing or bearing. And by the looks of this one, it could use a little bit more tension. So the way you do that is you take your X-Acto blade and you go up here where the arm meets the Endbell plastic, and you just get your X-Acto in there and pull down. Pull down on the blade and push up on the Endbell, and that's going to add more tension right here, so that you can already see that the brush is down further right now, because the other side hasn't been, the tension on the other side over here hasn't been increased yet. But if you pull this down, you can see that the brush comes way further down, and that's how you increase the tension. So let me do the other side real quick. Real hard to get over onto this camera.
You don't want to use this one? No sound?
I don't know if there's sound. They gotta let me know. So there shouldn't be any sound issues at all, but I don't know why we had them at the beginning there. All right, so both sides have had the tension increase, and you can see that the brushes are pretty centered on the center hole of the Endbell, which is what we're after. So you pull one side away, and they both come down about the same distance. And that's the Endbell tweaks. Again, we didn't have to do the any bending here, because that was already pretty much how I wanted it, straight from BSRT. We added tension here and here, and we bent the hangers. So now we're going to work on the hangers. Does anybody have any questions?
No.
All right. So
Eddie Delphin says, please take the autofocus off the camera. I don't know why.
yeah.
Big Rich is checking in. Big Rich Daddy.
Mm-hmm. I don't know where the autofocus setting is, so sorry, Eddie. All right, so we're going to grab as flat as we can on the hanger to put a little bit of a bend in there. We only want a very slight bend here, as such, because we're going to use the pickup shoes, my pickup shoes. So it's right here. It's a very slight bend. You can see that it's not straight up and down. Talking about right here. There's a very slight bend forward towards the front of the car. And that's going to do a couple things. It's going to pull the heel of the shoe up a tiny bit, which isn't that necessary with my new shoes, because it's already built in so that they don't run as heel heavy as like a stock shoe you'll get from Viper or from BSRT. It's mainly for making sure that the shoe doesn't fall off of the hanger while you're racing, which will happen with any shoes out there if you don't tweak the hanger. This one you have to tweak a lot less than if you were running other shoes. I tried to build it totally out, but it didn't quite work out. So, inside joke with my boy Bodie is the math was wrong. So we got one hanger bent. Grab the other one. Everybody always asks me, why do I put silver on one side and copper on the other? And there's no real technical reason for it. It's just basically as a quick reminder that it was one of the cars that I built. Silver is a better conductor than copper, but it's not that big of a difference, so it doesn't make that much of a difference. All right, so we're going to put the silver one on the power side, which is the driver's side of the car. We'll we'll pop that in there. And I like to use my tweezers. Where did it go? There we go. To make sure that it's nice and straight before I push it down and into the car. This is really hard to do when it's not right in front of me. Sorry. Go back over to this camera. Just want to make sure it's centered in the chassis, in the recess of the chassis, and then just pop it in. There we go. All right, both hangers are on. The Endbell is tweaked. The next thing we're going to work on is the motor spacing. Which magnets did he want? Thanks to Rondo Wines for donating the motor. It is, I think I said it was a 6 foot. Yep, 6 foot of 36 Rondo Wine / Bodie Bullet. I have some comm spacers right here. You always want to make sure, he already has a phenolic on the end of that. You always want to make sure that there is at least something that's non-metallic on the comm end, because if you don't, you can short the motor out. Who's that?
Alex asked who on Jack Newman wanted it.
Why not gold hanger? Silver's a better conductor than gold.
It's true.
So that's why not gold. Plus, silver's cheaper. Anyway, make sure that there is something non-metallic on the where the spacers are going to touch the comm. If you don't, and there's nothing there, you can see that there's some metal that's right here that will touch from multiple poles and short the motor, and then your motor is ruined. So Rondo has a nice phenolic spacer on there, so we'll leave that on there. And then I got my metal spacers here. It's probably going to be about 20 thou. What's up?
Bodie texted message. Nice, Roger. I remember installing my first pair of shoes. It was tough for sure.
Thanks, Bodie. All right, so I got the phenolic, which is about 10 thou, and another 20 thou on there to start. My nice new Bodie Bullets. Sorry. Bodie Bullets Endbell tool. Just put that on. What we're looking for here is how far on the brushes go. So sorry, just zooming in here. Give me a second, make that focus. All right, so you can see right here, the brush arms are very close to the comm tabs, and the brushes are not centered in the comm. So what that tells us is we want it to look like that, where you can see some of the copper. This is too far in, so the brush arms or the brushes themselves are going to hit the actual comm. That's not good. You can burn everything up and ruin the motor and ruin your race. So what we're going to do is take this out and try not to lose the spacer, which I almost did. There's a 10 thou in there. Leave that there. Grab another, actually a 20 thou in there. Grab another 10 or 15. I'm going to try a 15 first. Put that on here. Line everything up again. That's a little closer, but not quite where I want. It's very close. So I'm going to take that 115 out that I just put on there and put in another 20. And then that should be pretty good. And you want to make sure you check both sides, both arms. So this one is pretty good. You can see the copper of the comm. This one right here, not so much. So you got to make sure you check both sides, both arms of the Endbell. Give me 1 second and I will take the second one off that we just put on.
Nobody has any questions yet?
We'll do some questions at the end too, but if you guys have any questions while we're building, just make sure you type them in there. So the spacer moved a little bit in here. I gotta line it back up with the bearing. Or take it out and put it on like that. Put that into the bearing. And now you can see some copper on both sides, both arms when flipped over. And that's what you're looking for. You can spend a little bit more time this if you think it's not centered, but looking at this pretty closely, it looks pretty centered on the comm itself. So if you're happy with the spacing, you have to obviously take the motor out, make sure you don't lose the spacers. Both are on there. Grab your timing bracket, which is over here. Oops, drop that. Hand that to me, please. Thank you, sir. Grab the timing bracket. Grab the motor. Careful of your spacers. My freaking tool closed on me. All right, everything is together, trust me. There we go. Take the time or the Endbell tool out. Your motor is good to go. What are you laughing at?
Something RJ said, but
What did he say?
Ben asked, what wind arm do you prefer with the HG motor magnets?
With the high downforce motor magnets, it's all track dependent. So let's talk about that for a second. I like to run cars pretty different than a lot of people because I like a lot of brakes. I want my car to just stop on a dime instantly. So I run a higher gear ratio than most people do, 724 or 725. So I need to pick a higher power motor usually than most people will to get the top speed that I want, but also have the car stop the way that I want it to. So other people will play with the gearing. I don't like to play with the gearing. I like to keep the gearing constant. So I run 724, sometimes 725. And again, that's because I want the car to stop. So with the HD magnets, as a general rule, let's say you run 6 foot of 36, either go up a half a wind or drop a half of a foot. So if the footage remains constant and you're running a 6 foot of 36, go to a 6 foot of 35.5, or go to a 5.5 of 36. Hopefully that makes sense. To start with the high downforce motor magnets. Cool. Does that answer your question? While I wait for your response, I'm going to grab the motor. Work over here. Grab my Dremel. It's got a bit to rough up. Here we go. I'm going to rough up the shaft so that the pinion will hold better. So just take the tool to the shaft, spin the motor around. And this, you need to do this if you're going to use metal or plastic pinions. It doesn't matter. It's just a good habit to get into. Or pay somebody extra to sandblast the shaft of the motor for you. All right, so that's done. Now what?
RJ's asking if it's going to be a slip-on build.
No, it's not going to be a slip-on build, RJ. Thanks for the questions. Keep them coming. All right. So I already have a pinion. It's a new hardened pinion, one of my new hardened pinions in my trusty pinion tool. I'm going to grab some Loctite again. And it's just a habit I've been into since I've been racing. I always use the green Loctite for every pinion that I put on. And it's Loctite sleeve retainer 620. And I haven't ever had any issues with pinions moving or falling off the shaft. Have had other problems with pinions, as you know, we saw at the Nats last year. But anyway, that was totally different. That was a complete gear failure. Basically, all I'm doing is same thing as with the retainer, just getting a good amount of the Loctite in the pinion, twirl it around, make sure it coats everything. Now what?
No mess with the pressure. That's not the new Fusion chassis.
Wow. All right. Moving on. We roughed up the shaft, the motor shaft. We got Loctite on here. You can, it's not necessary, you can take a little more Loctite and put it on the end of the shaft just to cover your bases. It's not 100% necessary. And then just grab your pinion tool and push it on.
No bearing.
Oh, I forgot the bearings, thanks. And I did such a good job of roughing that up. This is going to be fucking amazing, difficult to take off.
6 foot, according to Mr. Rondinell, 6 foot of 36 is 1.72
There we go.
ohms. 5.5 of 36 is 1.5, and 6 foot of 35.5 is 1.52 ohms. Thank you, Chris.
So it's pretty similar. So it's basically what I was saying, right? Yep. 5.5 of 36 is very similar to 6 of 35.5. Thanks for verifying that, Chris. Appreciate it. All right. Can't believe I forgot that. Anyway, so we'll get back to that in a minute. We need to grab some spacers, and it's this part is going to be different. And I know some people like to measure. I'm going to leave that one alone, RJ. The spacing for back here is going to be different depending on a few things. What size bearing you're using, and I always use the same size bearings, the skinny ones. I forget the measurements off the top of my head, but there they are. They're Boca bearings. Put it right here so you can see it. I forget the dimensions of those bearings, but I can look it up and put it in the comments of the video once I'm all done. But what I was getting ready to say is it depends on how much this brass spacer right here. Let me zoom in a little bit more. It depends where this brass spacer is in relation to the stacks on how many spacers you're going to need to put after it back here to space it in the car properly. So I'm just going to grab the magnets. HD, he said. Sorry, keep asking.
Yes.
I keep forgetting, I mean. Throw the magnets on there.
Must be all that shaft talk.
Yeah. Threw me for a loop, man. Got me all distracted. A little excited. Didn't know RJ wanted to rough up my shaft. Sorry. I won't say that again. I'm going to start with a 15 thou spacer. Get a nice close-up view of my forearms. 15 thou spacer back here. The bearing. And I'm just going to... That's a little tight. There we go. It was a little tight past the where I roughed up the shaft. Sorry about that. I'm just going to put the the pinion on here so I don't lose the spacer or the bearing when I try to test fit the spacing. So I have a 10th down spacer and the bearing on there, and we're going to test fit. Let me get the axle out of here, out of my way. We're going to test fit the motor block. All right, so I like to put the rear end of the car in first, and then I'll grab my X-Acto, my trusty X-Acto, and I'll guide the ears past the hanger on both sides before I start to press down. So you can see, trying to get it to zoom in there, where it focused there. I'm just trying to make sure that the ears right here clear the hanger, because if you don't, you can break the ear. It's clear on that side, clear on that side, and push down, push the rear of the bearing down as well. Get the end bell in the position that you want. Driver side down if you want it advanced. Neutral is neutral. And I never go full retard.
Come on, RJ, make a comment.
I'm proud of myself for that one. All right, so we got that in there. Just want to look at the spacing. There's a little bit of movement there. It's hard to see. You want to pull back to see how far back the bearing is going to go. There's probably about 10 thou of movement in there, which isn't bad. It's pretty good. I just want to make sure that this bearing is moving right. Sorry. I have to look past my glasses. I'm getting old. All right, I'm happy with the spacing. That looks pretty good. Somebody type something there. 1.2, yes, 1.2 millimeters thick. Thank you very much for the bearings. Spacing looks good. Again, I'm happy with that, so I can press this. I'm not going to use this. Actually, that's pretty freaking tight, so I'll push the push the pinion all the way back on. Once I start track testing this for after the video, I'm not going to do the track testing on the video. I have to remove the cameras everywhere, and it's just going to take too long. But I will make sure I track test the car before I send it out to you, Jack. Once I do that, I'll change the pinion afterwards if it looks bad.
Someone should make a tool that you can measure all that before you put the actual arm in.
Bodie, you work on that for Chris? He wants a tool to measure the spacing of the motors. All right, so before the video, a couple people asked me to make sure we talk about how to properly put the magnets in for like high downforce or low downforce. Let me get this centered, sorry. There we go. My mat moved. There it is. There's the white lines. All right, good. So the easiest way to do this is you got your motor magnets in. The white magnet has to go on the passenger side. All right. Then you take your traction magnet, and you know how your traction magnets for the Vipers and Gs have the step in it, right? There's your step. That's the surface that makes contact with the rail. So when you want to be in high downforce, which you should always be in high downforce on CMPM and super stock, spec racer should always be in high downforce to get as much downforce as you can. That's just the name of the game. Take the I see Bodie typed something. I don't have time to look at it right now. I'll look at it in a second. Take the step and make sure that it attracts to the back side of the motor magnet. You all see that? The step attracts to the back side of the motor magnet. That should be much more focused than that. There we go. That's high downforce. If you move it to the other side, get this one out of the way, you'll see that the top of the magnet attracts to the backside of the driver's side magnet, motor magnet. That's low downforce. So this magnet needs to be over here, and this magnet needs to be over here. That's how you put it in high downforce or low downforce. Got it? Any questions on that?
Does that have any effect on the speed of the motor? Like the magnet field change when you flip them around like that?
The magnet fields change, but it doesn't have any effect on the speed of the motor. It'll actually make a difference on where the motor sits. So in high downforce, it's going to push the motor forward. Here we go. Forward. If you put it in low downforce, it's going to pull the motor back. All right?
Yes.
All right, cool. So now we're just going to take these magnets and where did I go? There we go. And put them in place. And they do only go in one way on a Viper and a G. There is a step right here. Oops. Hold on. Where'd I go? There it is. There is a step right here that fits right where this is. Come on. There is a ledge right here that step fits over top of. So you don't want that step on the magnet. You don't want this step. I can't see. Gotta look past the glasses. You don't want this step right here facing towards the back of the car. You want it facing towards the front of the car. All right, so we're gonna put that back over here. Make sure that it attracts the right way. And it does. Flip the car over. Take our magnets. Put them on. Where'd it go? All right, magnets are in. Deep breath. Anybody got any questions before we move forward?
RJ asked if you've done the math on that.
On which part of it, RJ?
Rich asked Rich said 0.05 to 0.07 is good. And then RJ says you've done the math on that.
Gotcha. I guess you're talking about the motor spacing. Really, anything from 5 to 10 thou spacing back and forth is pretty good. Anything more than 10 thou and you're looking at issues with gear mesh later on while you're racing, so you don't want it really to be any more than that. Especially if you're going to use a double-sided gear boss where you're using the tit of the pinion and the double-sided gear boss to space your axle. If you have too much play, then the pinion gear can make contact with the gear boss, heat things up, melt things, and make some generally bad things happen. I'm just going to, everybody knows how to put the magnet clip on, so I'm just going to put that on. Talk about something that my boy Matt Handy accidentally showed me a few years ago. If you want to play with the overall stiffness of your car's setup, you be quiet, Kuiper. You can take, all right, we used a firm chassis. All right, if you wanted the car to be even stiffer than that, but you didn't want to go to a stiff chassis, just put the stiff timing bracket and stiff magnet clip on the car, and you can fine tune that if you wanted it to be a little bit stiffer than the firm, but not as stiff as the stiff chassis. Now, if you're using the medium chassis, same thing applies. Just put either the firm or the stiff timing bracket and magnet clip on there, and you can fine tune that. You can also go the other way with that. If you wanted it to be a little softer and give a little bit more, hold on. It's annoying me. That's not focused. That looks a little better. Actually, no, it doesn't. Sorry. There it is. Ah.
So close.
It's all relative. It's how you want the car to feel, RJ. So, generally speaking, if you're on a really high-speed track that has a lot of high-speed corners, you probably want the car to be a little stiffer. And I know where you're headed with this comment. I'm just ignoring it. And if you have a lot of twisty sections, like the CMPM track from last year, a lot of sorry, I dropped my tweezers. A lot of changes of directions. You probably want the car to be a little more forgiving and give a little bit more so that your magnets are staying in contact with the rails. So that's what it's all about, is keeping the magnets in contact with the rails. The stiffer the chassis, the easier it is for the magnets to come away from the rails as you exceed the downforce of your magnets. If it bends a little bit, your magnets will twist with the surface of the magnets will stay on the rail as the chassis twists first before it releases and pops off the track. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so we got the magnets in, we got the motor spaced, the pinion is on. We're gonna work on the shoes and the springs. So this is another thing that I do a little bit different than most. I like to run a lot more. Hold on. Matt did that in super stock in 20. That's exactly where I saw him do that. And he was working with you, Rondo, and you guys were pitted next to me, and I overheard that, and that's where I learned it. So that brings up another point, right? Always keep your eyes and ears open, because you'll always learn something that you didn't know. That's a great tip. It's helped me fine-tune my setups on certain tracks. And you can always learn something from somebody else. I don't care who you are. Anyway, back to what I was talking about with the spring tension. I like to run fairly high spring tension, but there's a reason for that. Is I like to run my nose up in the air a little bit more. So I'll try and find where everything is level, and then I'll go up a little bit. And that's to keep the car, in my opinion, from the front end bottoming out and any high rails that might be at some corners. So if you put the nose up, you have to increase your pickup tension. The other thing with pickup tension is if you run too soft of a pickup tension, you're going to cut away at your top speed. The car is going to handle better because you're not going to be giving it as much power. So you're basically starving the motor of its potential power. I like the car to go into the corner hard and come out pretty fast as well. So the more pickup tension you run, shut up. The more pickup tension you run, the quicker your acceleration is going to be, and the more pop you're going to have when you pull the trigger. And let the comments commence. So with that said, my starting place before I get to a track is usually a 10 thou on the driver's side and a 9 thou on the passenger side for CMPM, and that's what I'm going to be putting in here. 10 thou on the driver's side and a 9 on the passenger side. But before I put the shoes on, we got to get the shoes ready.
That'd be called lacing them up.
Yeah, we're going to lace up the shoes. All right, so these are the Hyper-Volt pickup shoes. Just going to take the flat side. Hold on. I just want to show you how I grab the shoe. I'll put my thumb.
This episode I can't anymore.
I'm going to push my thumb up against that bit right there, my thumbnail, so it'll basically be where'd it go? Basically be pushing right there so that I get nice pressure on the entire shoe. Now, not doing this to make them flat, although it does help with that. What I'm doing is to just take the finish, which is just a heat treating finish, off the bottom of the shoe so that you get better electrical connection. So I'll just take that, start it, move it around in a figure eight a little bit. It's mostly flat too, so that's good. And the shoe looks pretty good. Again, it's nice. It's much shinier once you do that and you take the finish off. There you go. See the difference? That's what you're looking for. So let me do the other one real quick. Sometimes you'll find some from the stamping when they come off that it's not, you can see where the actual stamp is too. So when they cut the shoe, you can just sand that out so everything is nice and flat too. It doesn't take much. It'll only take a second. You see, it's pretty much out of there now. There's a little spot. I'll get out of there in a second. Get it out of there in a second. Mr. Squirrel. For some reason, Viper clips seem to break on me, but BSRT I never break. You're talking about the magnet clip? Yeah, and it's different. It's the firm ones on the Viper seem to have a more of a chance to snap when you put them on. The medium ones I don't ever really snap. The same with the super stiff and the flex. I don't know what the material is for the firm, but I have had a problem with that in the past. I usually either use the medium or the stiff. Anyway, just the way that I'll put the shoes on is I'll put the back of it in like that. I'll take my tweezer and grab the front and guide it over the pickup tab. Just like that, it's on there. And another thing to do to make sure that they don't come off in a crash in the race is I'll take this part right here and push it back towards the motor. So it's basically just going to bend this back further, and it'll engage the pickup tab more, so there's less of a chance to fall off. Basically, quote unquote, locking it in. And I'll do that with my thumbnail. And I usually only do it on one side because that's all you need. Sorry, it's really hard to do this and keep it on camera and be able to see what I'm doing. There you go. That's what you want to do right there. Just push back right there. And you can see how much further it's pushed back on the tab, and it's not going to come off now. That, in conjunction with slightly bending the hangers like we did earlier, is going to keep the shoes on the car.
Mr. Matt Haney checks in and says, hurry up, the race is about to start.
I know. I thought the race was going to run earlier this morning. Otherwise, I would have not scheduled this today.
Eddie Delphin says, nice finger work, Roger.
Thanks, Eddie.
I can't comment on that, can I?
You can do whatever you want.
I would go with, that's why he's married.
Something like that. All right, just putting the other shoe on. Again, I'm going to guide it past the tab. It's on there. Now we're going to push this one back. That's on there. So both shoes are on. Got my front tires here. So we got to talk about this because this is a mistake a lot of people make that I see. When you run high downforce motor magnets, you need to start. A good starting point is with 340 tires. You need to start with taller tires than if you're going to run low downforce or high torque motor magnets. It's just because you have all this mass down here. All the mass down here on both sides against both rails, that if you run the same small front tires as you would run with the low downforce magnets, you're just going to be chewing up that magnet, and your front end is going to be too low into the track, and you're going to have the car just feel like it's skating straight off or going straight off into the corner. Whereas if you raise it, you're not going to have that problem. So a good starting point, like I said, is 340 front tires for high downforce motor magnets. I usually start with like 332 for the high torque or the low downforce ones. So I'm going to grab the wrong set of tires. Be right back. All right, so we're going to grab a set of 340s. These are Wizzard fronts, so they're a little wider. And everybody knows how to put front tires on. I use 1500 grit diamond sanding plate. Yeah, this is like a 3000 sanding diamond sanding plate, Chris. So the tire on there, what you want to make sure you do with any front tire, any wide front tire, or even the narrow ones if you're going to run the narrower front rim, a narrower opening right there, is you want to take your thumbnail and press between the tire and the rim all the way around to make sure it's seated on there properly so that it's not angled as such.
Here's a good one from Mr. Ben. Ben wants to know, out of curiosity, any success sanding the motor magnets?
All right, so we're going to get into that in a second. Let me just get this front tire on. So with the high downforce cars, with the low downforce cars, I don't really ever sand them, the low downforce or the high torque. And I have a mix of about 50-50 high downforce cars where I've sanded and not sanded. So when I sand them, I'm only going to take the car like this, with it pretty much built like it is now, but not with the motor I'm going to run in it. I'll put a dummy or a used up or a bad motor in there, and I'll take the car. I'm not going to do it here because I don't want to sand this car. Hold on, let me get this lined up. And I'll just move it side to side with the magnets pulling down. This is a flat surface. It's metal, so the magnets are pulling it down. And I'll just move it side to side a few times. All I want to do when I sand it is take the black paint of the magnets off, because I only use the Viper magnets. And you just want to get this black paint off so you get closer to the actual magnet itself. Because basically this is a thin, it's a thin surface, right? Paint's not going to take up but a few thou, but it's basically like a shim. So I want to take that off. As you run, it'll come off on its own, but if you want to just sand it to take it off there, that's what I'll do. Also, the other thing with sanding is it makes the car flatter, so that's also good. These are my new magnet clips right here. So it's basically a shim. Just take it, put it on the side there. It's a lot easier with the high downforce and the high torque, because the back side of the magnets, no thanks, I'll get it in a second. The back side of the magnets are flat, so there's nothing for the clip to get caught in as you push it down into the chassis. With the low downforce magnets, you have these two ridges. All right, so when you put those on, it's a little trickier because you have to guide the shim past the bottom ridge with an X-Acto. We're not using these in this build because, not using the low downforce magnets in this build because Jack wants the other one. But basically, so you can see outside of the chassis that the clip has to rest on the bottom ridge. Let me zoom in better. Hold on. Right here, the clip is, here we go. You can see it right there. Is resting on that bottom ridge. When you put it together, you need to use the X-Acto like that to guide it over that ridge when you're installing it. That's the only point I'm trying to make. So right now, since the high downforce ones don't have that ridge and they're flat on that side, you basically just put it in there, press down, it locks into place, and now the magnet is pretty much locked in. It's not going to pop up out past the chassis, and the magnets are basically shimmed into place, and they're not going to move as you drive around the car. In my opinion, it helps the handling a lot. So let me just get the other one in.
There's two questions. One from RJ. Is shimming allowed?
Shimming is allowed in CMPM, Neo, and of course Unlimited. It is not allowed in Superstock and Spec or Brass Jet.
And the second question is from John Pelleggi.
Hey, John.
Are grooved/worn-out traction magnets a definite no-no?
A definite no-no as in you don't want to use them, or being, I mean, they're not illegal. So there's different schools of thoughts there. In the past, like up until last year, in my opinion, it was best to treat the magnets, like the CMPM, the polymer magnets, as disposable, and as they wore out and they had a deep groove in them, get rid of them and replace them. I still kind of lean that way, but I also have seen cars that are running on purpose with deep grooves like that, like you used to do with a Tyco Superstock, where you wanted to groove in all those ceramic traction magnets to get the car as low as possible. I've seen cars work well like that as well. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another.
John asked, are they not competitive with fresh magnets?
I think they're competitive with fresh magnets. I mean, the car I built and raced last year was a very competitive car until I ran into my pinion issue, and that was a brand new set of magnets. The car was built between my last warm-up race and the Nats, and that was the only place it was raced. So they're brand new magnets that were very, very lightly sanded, as I was showing here. Only thing took off was the paint on the bottom of the magnets, and they were brand new. I might have that car handy. Hold on a second. Now what?
Nothing. Me and Bodie.
So these magnets started out brand new, but after the race, they have a decent groove in them. So I thought the car worked great with new magnets. Sorry. Okay, so that's pretty much the car. Got to drill out the rear axle. I have a nice Dremel from my dad where he actually put a micro switch in here, so you just press the button and it powers it on. And it's pretty good when you're doing stuff like this. So I have an 021 drill bit here from McMaster to drill out the axle retainer. Oh, hopefully I didn't break that. Nope. So I do them all by hand. Just take the bit. Hold on. The Viper chassis has a nice flattened surface right here, where the hole with the hole is started for the retainer, so it's easy to get it started and then line it up, drill it out. Sorry, nose itches. I like to usually have the axle in too when I do this. Which side did I do? Okay, did the driver's side. And of course the battery dies. Murphy's kicking my ass today. All right, that's done. Bear with me a second. What?
Rusty Jackson asked, them chassis don't come pre-drilled? The math is just adding up.
None of them come pre-drilled. Anyway, take that out. You want to clean the crap from drilling it out of here. Where are we at? Just pull the flashing out of here. clean it up. Make sure it's all out of there. I like to use the U-clips that my dad had. Those. Some people think that it stiffens the back of the car up. It may a little bit, but I don't think that's a bad thing.
Did you ever push it too far in? It touches the magnets and then it shorts out in the track.
I have, unfortunately. So when you drill it out, you want to make sure you don't go through all the way through this part of the chassis right here. You want to just have it go into that a little bit so that when you push the retainer all the way in, that it seats into there, into this side of the chassis, but doesn't go all the way through and touch the magnet. All right, that's good. Everybody knows how to put tires on, so I'm just going to show you. I already did a video on spacing axles too, so we're going to use an orange 22 tooth with the new lightened gear boss. You can see it sits on there pretty good. Very little end play, which is what you want, all the way around. Fits really good. And I'm going to space it on this side as well from the chassis, just as a backup. What's up?
No, Chase Walker says, I think we can all appreciate a thick rear end.
All right, nice. Moving on. That's the car. I will put the rear tires on later and test it, and I'll send you pics of the testing process, Jack, and I'll also add the pics to the description of this video, as well as the entire build sheet will also be in the description for the video. And let's move to questions and answers. Any other questions? Do you have any questions, Kuiper?
I have plenty of questions, but I'm not allowed to speak about them.
Yeah, I put Kuiper on. I gave Kuiper a set of ground rules. What do we got here? I missed the beginning of the session. Is it being recorded for? Yes, you'll be able to see the video will be saved on my YouTube channel, so you'll be able to watch it as much or as often as you like. You didn't mount the body. That's cool. It's a good thing you asked that, Bodie, because I have an entire video that's about a half hour long on how to mount the body. You can go watch that one when you're done here. Cool? Good. Thanks. What's the purpose of the staggered pickup brackets? Yeah, I talked about that briefly when I put it together. Silver one here, copper one here. Silver's a better conductor, but it doesn't make that much of a difference. I only do this as a call out to know it was a car that I built. That's pretty much it. I mean, like I said, silver's a slightly better conductor. If you want to use silver everywhere, that's fine. It's also a little bit more expensive to buy silver hangers, so only having to put one on each car saves a little bit of money. What is that? Gotcha. Woo.
Yeah, I'm 10 seconds behind.
Yeah, I know. Any other questions, guys, gals? Yeah, Bodie, watch the video. Thanks, Ben. I appreciate the backup. All right. I'll answer any more questions as they come up, but let's move to the trivia part of it. And we're going to do the free CMP entry at the Nats first. So for both of these questions, for both of the prizes, the first person to correctly answer in the chat wins the prize. It's not going to be a drawing. It's not going to be... I see your question, Chase. I'll get to it in a second. It's just going to purely be the first person to answer the question in the chat. That'll be the winner. All right, so let me highlight this one. Give me a second. Here's Chase's question. Metal versus plastic crowns. It depends, right? So are you having problems with gears stripping? If not, use plastic because And I never would have believed this until I switched from my dad's metal gears to plastic gears 3 or 4 years ago. It is at least a tenth of a second on any track, even if it's a short lap. I have a very short track here. I went from my dad's metal gears to my own plastic gears, and I gained a tenth of a second. So as long as you have pinions and crowns that are strong enough to last, use plastic. It's just going to be faster.
What is your favorite setup for plastic gears?
My own gears.
Yeah, but orange and orange, or new hardened pinion and orange?
So I like the orange with the new hardened pinion, but I also like the purple with the new hardened pinion as well. And the only reason you would use the purple over the orange is to save a little bit of weight. So they'll spin up a little bit faster. Like my grandpa always says, every little bit helps. Or he used to say anyway. And if I'm having problems with the actual crown gear stripping, where I'm just crashing a lot or whatever, then I'll switch to the orange ones.
Ben asked Duracoat versus plastic.
For the pinion, I'm using my pinions, the plastic pinions. For CMPM, I'm using the hardened one only.
Stephen Jones asked, what do you prefer for guide pins? What's your guide pin choice? BSRT, Viper?
I like the regular BSRT one. They just seem to last a little bit longer. I know Viper makes a hardened one. They're pretty long, and I don't like cutting them. So
you don't like long shafts?
I don't like long shafts, right? Where's Tripod? Is he on here?
Yes, Rich Mason, your boy. Is the tripod.
There he is. Thanks, Rich. Any other questions? All right, here we go. The trivia question for the free CMPM entry at this year's Nats. We're going to Boston this year. The last time we were at Boston, Lenjet, who was the grand champion in 2018? Again, first person who answers correctly wins. Sean, I already gave you this, so you're out. So don't type the answer, Sean. Everybody's rushing to the hopper.net website to find the answer.
That's a good question.
It was not me.
Dave Laughlin asked a good question.
Yes, John Lepresto, you are correct. It was Scott Terry. John Lepresto, you get a free entry for CMPM. Congrats. You hit up hit up Sean for your free entry. I'm not sure if that's senior or junior. Sorry.
Rondo's late.
You were late again, Rondo. All right. That's that. The prize pack right here. RPM's prize pack. It has one each of the orange gear, 21 through 25. My new front end with the drill blank axle, a pair of pickup shoes, a pair of the new magnet shims, a couple of hardened pinions, and I forget what else is in there. It's almost $70 worth of stuff. The trivia question for that, it's the first person to get, I see it, John, thank you. The first person to get both answers right, and please put both answers on one line so I'm not trying to scroll through and find both answers. What number and colors do I generally run on my race cars?
Am I allowed to answer?
No, you're not. You're not allowed to answer. Stephen Jones got it. Orange and purple 3. That's the first correct answer that I see, right? Yep. Orange and purple and 3. Steve Jones, you win the prize pack, bud. Message me on Facebook Messenger your address, and I'll get it sent out to you tomorrow, all right?
Rich May, 22 purple, 24 orange, 69 pink and orange purple. Hey, Jace.
Orange. That's right, Bodie. It's orange.
Rusty Jackson with the black 18.
The black 18? Definitely not 18. I got to figure out a way to make sure that I can...
Isn't that Rich May?
What?
Eddie Delphin, orange and purple.
Yeah, we already got a winner. Sorry, you missed a number there, Ed. You got the colors right.
Corey Glover, can't spell anymore. A
Yeah.
orange.
Yeah,
Stacy Grove says, check my answer.
I'm looking. Yeah, you had the right answer, but Steve Jones answered one line before you, Stacy. Sorry. Orange and purple. Steve Jones. He got it first.
Dave Laughlin did have a question.
I missed it. What was your question, Dave?
Something about long travel shoes.
Oh, I don't use long travel shoes. I don't think I don't know what the reason would be for, unless you want it to limit the travel with them. The shoes that I made them very low, very short travel, so that you don't have to bend it at all. It's a much shorter travel than any other shoe out there. Did I miss any other questions? Go ahead, fellas. Keep asking them. I'll stay here for at least another 10 minutes or so. And thank you to everybody for watching. Hopefully you get something out of here. Sorry for the audio problems at the beginning. I did test all this stuff before, and I was not having any audio issues, so I'm going to have to figure out what that was. Make sure that you click subscribe on the actual YouTube channel, and that way you'll be aware of any other videos that I put out there in the future. And if there are no other questions, we're gonna end it here. Are you going to break the? Yes, I mentioned that already, Bodie. I'm not gonna do it on this video because I don't have time to rearrange all the cameras and get everything pointed at the track. So I'm going to install the tires and tune the car up, break it in, and then I'll put all the pictures of its performance in the description of the video later on, as well as the build sheet. Thanks, Rich. I appreciate it. Anything else? Going once, going twice. And I'll wait a few seconds because it's about 10 seconds behind me. What size rear tires? Going to start with 432 because that's generally what's good for my track here with a brand new car unsanded. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Got anything you want to add? Why don't you wait? Hold up on here a second. Come on up here. Come on up here, Chris. My buddy Chris.
What's up, Yos?
He helped out. He came down just for this video.
Yeah.
So let's thank him too.
Woo! I wasn't allowed to make good comments. So many good comments. I want to do a Science Mystery Theater 2000 of this things.
Okay.
Yeah, you still don't know what that is, huh?
All right, everybody. Thanks again. And I will see you at a track soon. Take care.